Okay, hi everyone. I know it's been a minute. I actually have been under the weather with crazy migraines and with the heat the last couple of days, and then just migraines just started around the 4th of July, and finally feel better today. I had my hair up, so we'll see how long that'll stay. So, with that being said, I just want to say that after the stream, um, a link in the description box below is a We're Not That Done podcast, the CG Circle channel, and I'm going to link yesterday's podcast with We're Not Done That, where they had the part two Christian Chenoweth. So, yeah. So again, today we're going to do 3 episodes. I'm a little bit behind just because I haven't been doing well. And so we're going to do 3 episodes. So we're starting with season 2. We finished with season 1 on Friday. So now we're going to do season 2, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And the reason why we're doing 3 episodes is because episode 1 and 2 are part 1 and part 2. So just like the last time, it's just I consider it to be 1 episode. So technically we're doing 2 episodes, but it's going to be 3 all encompassing. I believe co-host in the background is here. I'm excited. So hopefully she can hang out for a while. Um, so again, with the first, well, really with both all 3 episodes, they're very sensitive topics. So I'm going to be very careful and I'm going to jump over a lot. So basically, we're just going to get the gist of what's going on without me saying a lot of what's really going on. So basically, so again, the We're Not Done Yet podcast will be linked below. The CG Circle is linked below, and then the new episode of that they just put out of the We're Not Done Yet podcast will be linked below after this live. So, starting off with season 2, episodes 1 and 2, we open driving, and then it jumps to Karen and Diana at her school. I guess it's they call it the Fall Follies or something like that. So they are just watching a band while while Diana's getting ready for her turn on stage. Um, and then we cut back to Sid driving, and he sees a young lady who's asking for a ride. And at first, Sid says no, and then he sees that a van pulls up behind him. Guys get out, try to take the girl, put her in the van, and all this stuff. And then Sid backs up and lets her in. And then the van follows him, and then they talk about, and then him and the girl, who I met, her name is Pam, which I think is ironic because there's a Pam on Dallas. Pam, I mean, come on, couldn't they get more original? Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to know is that with this first season, these first 2 episodes, the actors of Sid, Don Murray, he wrote these episodes, so I guess this is why it's a little bit more Karen and Sid heavy. Um, so then we jump back at the school, and again there's a band playing, and Karen is helping Diana Jack get ready by making sure that the costumes all fit, they're not too tight or anything like that. And then, uh, and then we jump back out to the car where the van is still following the car. Um, and then we jump back to the school. So again, this is kind of really choppy editing. Um, I guess to tell the story. So so the van ends and the audience is wanting an encore. So Karen goes out and tells the announces that they want an encore, so she calls the band back on stage, and they do another encore. And then we jump back to the car, and we see that Pam asks him for money, and he says no. The van is still following them. And then Pam says that she's gonna do something. However, and then Sid says, "Okay, well, fine. You're gonna go ahead and do it, then do it. Now's your chance." Because there was cop cars there. And then we see we're back at the school, and the boys are anxious to see Diana, and then Sid, and asking where Sid is. And then Diana and her group are performing. And then the next scene is that Sid gets arrested, and he never makes it to the show. The next scene is that Sid is in a holding cell, and then the lieutenant comes up, asks the arresting officer what happened, or the one that's taking Tam's story, asking what happened, and the lieutenant asks him, "Did this really happen?" And Pam's like, "Well, yeah, I said it, didn't I?" And so then the lieutenant, not really believing the whole story, pulls Sid into his office, and then they go in and talk about it. Um, and then you see that Sid called Richard to go to pick him up and help him out. And then we see that Karen arrives at the jail. And then when Richard tells Laura what happened, she doesn't believe it. And then we see that Karen and Sid are in the lieutenant's office with Richard and the lieutenant. And then Richard doesn't think that the prelim is going to happen. However, it is scheduled for Tuesday. And then and Karen doesn't believe the girl. And then as they're walking out, the girl, Karen knows that Karen tells her about what happened, and I say that with quotation marks, what happened. And then again, Karen doesn't believe her. She yells back at her. And then pictures are taken by photographers. And then we're back at the fairgrounds. And Diana is on the phone. I guess it's the next morning. And Diana is on the phone. And she is asked to be in the band that was performing. And then we see that Sid and Karen are in the kitchen and they hug. We are introduced vocally to Abby and her kids. And they are coming to town and they're going to stay with them for a couple of days. And then Karen tells Sid that Richard is going to go talk to Kim, and Sid said that he wants to go talk to her. However, Karen says absolutely not. You're not going to put yourself in that situation. And then Karen does suggest to Sid that, maybe we should get a different type of lawyer and that Richard is not the boss. And then enters Abby and the kids. And then we see that at first Karen and Abby's friendship is cordial, nice, even sisterly. And then, however, the kids are uncontrollable. They go inside. And then we are at the fairgrounds with the neighbors to Abby. And the kids, Brian is introduced. Laura is and then we find out that since season 1, Laura is in the real estate business. Oh, and then Ginger and Kenny are still separated. So Kenny shows up to the fairgrounds, and Abby introduces herself to Kenny and starts to flirt with him. And then he wants to talk to Ginger. And then, like I said, Abby tries to hit on Kenny. Richard tries to hit on Abby. And then the next scene is that Sid is in the laundry room drinking water. And he sees that Karen can't make up her mind if she wants to make a phone call or not. And then she again tells Sid that she wants to talk to a different type of lawyer. And then Karen tells Sid that she wants to go back to the party, but Sid is still upset. And then we see that Ginger wants Kenny to leave, but Sid sees Kenny in the foyer and wants him to stay. Abby tries to also hit on Gary. So it's just kind of like Abby and everybody trying to, hi, co-host in the background. It's just like Abby trying to hit on everyone, foreseeing the future. Um, can you hear me okay? I'm just trying to go through this first and second episode pretty quickly. I think it's just a lot of back and forth again with the scenes. Um, so, and then Val excuses herself and goes and introduces herself to Olivia. Val talk, and then Olivia plays this game parrot where she mimics everyone. She repeats what everyone is saying. So Val lets it go at first. However, then Val talks so fast that it stops Olivia repeating everything. And then this is where we see that Val and Olivia become fast friends. And then we're back downstairs, and Richard tells him it's going to be okay. And then the next scene is that we see that Abby sees Val and Olivia and smiles. And then the next scene is that Brian is still making music. The boys sent him upstairs as a joke to wake up Sid and Karen and drop the paper. However, Karen sees the paper and there's a picture of them and an article in the paper from the night before from the police department. Karen does call the other lawyer and does call a friend and then does ask for another type of lawyer. And then next we are at the beach and there is a fight between Michael and another boy over his father's issues. And then we see that Michael leaves the area, leaves the beach and then goes home. And then we learn that the girl gives an interview in the paper about her and what she's been through and all that stuff. It's basically a liar. Said that basically he said, she said, everything, and then the lawyer is trying to help Carrie not to worry, and says that Richard's law firm does have one of the best criminal attorneys in town. However, we learn later that Richard is wanting to take this on himself. And then we see that Brian is having a hard time with all this. Having a hard time, I'm not sure why Brian is having a hard time, but whatever. And then we're at the school, at Diana's school, and her friends are talking about what happened, and Diana ends up overhearing. Um, and then we see that the house next door to Laura's is not being sold or rented because there's a lot going down with Sid, and everyone at the dealership is looking at Sid about what happened. And then we are at the girl's apartment, and this is where Richard shows up, and he wakes her up, and she asks if it is legal for Richard to be there and talk to her, and she said yes, and she does want to talk to Richard, and they want to work something out. Richard tells her that helping would be to her advantage. And then this is where we see that she tries to bribe her. And then next, we see that Karen wants Sid to talk to Richard. And this is in the bedroom, and then, they're kind of going back and forth, and Sid goes, you always have to have the last word, right? And Karen said, yes, I do. And then they go back and forth, and then Karen finally gets the last word. which I think is hilarious. And then it's the next day we see that Richard's boss Simpson, no, we know him as Simpson, calls Richard into his office and gives him an option to have help, and then Richard denies denies the help and says, this is a friend of mine. I really want to help him. However, this is my case and I'm doing it pro bono. And so he denies the help. And then his boss says, regardless if you are charging the fee or not, you are still representative of this law firm and don't mess this up. Well, we all know Richard who messes it up. So the next scene is that we see that Richard goes to pick up Cam to go down to the police station to drop the charges. Um, However, Cam's mother is there and tells him that she knows it's a bribe and that she tells him to leave and that they're not going to drop any charges and that they are not going and that they are going to go to trial. And then the next scene is there is a probable cause and said will be found over for trial. Richard underestimated the lady, and that is end of part one. So that was pretty quick. Co-host in the background, was that okay? Like, I just kind of ran through it pretty quickly. Oh, yeah. Crazy. Was that okay? I did it pretty quickly. So I'm not going to break down this part because it is rather quick. I do have a lot more notes on part two. Because part two, there was a lot more that happened. In part two, I'm trying to see where it ends. And then we go to part. And then we go to episode 3. Okay. So hold on 1 second. I'm gonna see. Okay. And then while I'm winning with that, I am going to play one of the scenes. It was so hard to pick out scenes from these episodes just because these were sensitive episodes, so I just wanted to be extra careful. Okay, so we're gonna go to and then episodes 1 and 2 are called Hitchhike Part 1 and Part 2. So this is the scene from Part 1. I'm gonna turn the volume up. And hold on. And this is in accordance with YouTube service policy.
Bye.
Bye. Hello there.
Hello there. So how's Abby? All the excitement last night I forgot to ask.
Well, she's right on top of everything. Didn't really need me.
She isn't upset?
More relieved.
So this is what we're vocally limited to Abby. I think this is a great scene to play just to see what we're going to get into with Miss Abby here in a couple of days with the next episode.
See?
I always liked Jeff. I always liked Jeff and Abby together.
Well, they're coming down from San Luis Obispo today on the way to San Diego. I suggested they break up the trip and stop here today.
Going to?
Well, baby's sister, she plays everything by ear.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Thanks.
I can't tell Karen's sigh if it's because of Abby or if it's because of the situation. However, I think there's a little bit of both. I don't know. We don't really know what the history is between Karen and Abby. So I'm wondering, because like I said, at first the relationship started out fine, but then, we don't know what the background is. So here we go. And this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Talk to Richard. He's planning on seeing the girl.
Good.
Boy, I don't. Maybe we should let Irv handle this. Richard isn't a criminal lawyer.
Neither is Irv. Business and taxes. That's his field.
Well, at least Irv is competent.
Rich is fine. I think seeing that girl's a good idea.
I think that Sid really wants Richard to have a win, and so therefore he's just trying to keep him on as long as he can in the scene. However, we do learn later that it doesn't work out well for Sid. Well, it does, but it doesn't. At first, it doesn't work out well for Sid and the first half of the second part. So, and again, this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Do that myself.
Do what yourself?
See the girl?
Sid, are you out of your mind? Don't go near that girl. Don't call her, don't see her, don't send her a Christmas card.
Oh, I thought she said absolutely not. It was utterly out of their mind, which I like better. But that's just my opinion.
But I don't believe it. What if she cried rape again? Then where would you be?
Oh.
I thought of that.
I might have to blurt that out, but I don't know how, so we'll just go on from there. And this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Sweet Sid. Let Richard handle the girl.
All right. So, co-host in the background, anything with that scene? Or anything you want to add or say about it? Sorry, I just wanted to send her a message real quick just to see how I'm sounding. Alright, so now I'm just going to jump right into part 2 because I'm not seeing any responses. So, alright. So part 2, and we are opening up with Eric walking his bike. And the one thing that I do want to say about this is that, the children are being just as, they're being just as affected by this as everybody else in the family. And so we can kind of see why the children are having an issue as well. So we do see that Eric is walking his bike back to the house. He's not in a very good mood. He just wants to, he goes into the house and he just leaves the bike in a foul mood. And then we see that Richard, Sid, Karen, and Laura are in the Fairgate living room. And Karen is giving Richard a hard time. And again, she really wants the best for Sid. She wants a different type of a lawyer. However, Richard and Sid says that, he believes in Richard, but Richard says that, it might be best if we do a plea bargain. And Sid says no, he wants to go to court. This is not true. And again, I think that depending on how much evidence and how much that the prosecution has, I would say yes, that the plea bargain might be a good idea. However, I wouldn't just go in and out and just say, in this case, that would have been the best idea. So I agree with Sid and Karen at this point. And then Karen doesn't want Sid tells him no. And Sid tells Richard what exactly happened and that he will not budge, and that Sid will go to court. And then we see that in the middle of this exchange, Diana comes downstairs and overhears and asks why Sid won't plead, and then and then they and Diana doesn't understand and she runs upstairs. Next we see that Laura encourages Richard to get help from another lawyer at his firm, and he refuses. And then that's when that we learn that Laura learns that Richard turned down help, and then Laura asks, "Well, what if you don't win the case?" Then um then we see that the band practices, Diana arrives, and then the band changes their mind about wanting Diana to be in the band, and Diana walks out. Next, we see that Karen wants to call the lawyer that Earl gave her. Abby comes over with the four children, or comes home with the four children, and asks if Diana can babysit. Then tries to ask Karen, and Karen goes off. And this is kind of where we start to see the tension between Karen and Abby. Diana comes in yelling at her dad about picking up the girl, and then Diana runs upstairs. Then we see that Sid goes to Diana's room to discuss the situation and ask her for her support. He talks about Karen and how hard this is on her mother. And Sid says that, what happened was, he tells Diana that he saw someone who looked like Diana and wanted to help her because he thought that she was in a bad way, and that he would like to know, he would like to think that he would do it again. However, after all this, he's not sure that he would. But then he does tell Diana to leave her, basically to leave her attitude in her room, and then come downstairs and stand up with and for her family. And then we see that Gary is at the dealership on the phone with someone who was saying that they did not want the cars that they did end up buying at some point. Um, Sid asked Gary what's going on, and Gary is trying to help Sid out the way that Sid helped him out, and said that they will get through this together. Next, we see that Karen goes to see the girl and her mother. This is where Karen learned what happened with Richard. She is trying, um, we see that Karen is trying on the dress that her mother ironed. and doesn't, and the mother doesn't know that her daughter lied about this whole situation. And then when Karen comes, she tries to tell him about her life, about her husband, about her children. However, with no use. And then Karen leaves after Pam said some nasty things about Sid. And then um, Karen is not happy. And then her mother goes after her and tries to talk to her. And then Karen is not happy. And then she goes to leave. And then we see the van again. And the van blocks her, unbeknownst to Karen. And then next scene is that we see Karen is at home sitting in the dark with the lights off, curtain closed. And this is kind of where we see the first scene about when Karen just kind of shuts off the world whenever she is just in a bad way. She just dims the light, doesn't want to be around anyone. And then Sid comes home early, and she tells him that it's over and what Richard did. And then next we see that Sid runs outside, tells Richard that he is fired, and that really broke Richard, but Sid did the right thing, I think, in that moment. And then we see that Richard goes to see his boss, Simpson, who Simpson wants the other lawyer to sit on the case, and Richard tells him that he is no longer on the case, and that they did hire another lawyer. Um, and then the next thing is that we see that the lawyer is on top of the case. They will go back to the place where it happened and go through everything. Um, then we see that Abby goes to the dealership to see Sid or to hit on Gary, lol. And then they talk for a little bit, and then the next thing is that says that her kids are with Val, and then Sid comes in yelling about the law and how nobody really follows the law. Um, bear with me, that Snowball is crawling around. I have to move him. So if I jump down, then that's why I probably hit a button. Um, and then next we see that Richard is cooking in the kitchen. However, he is drunk. This is one of many times that we see Richard cooking. And then Richard tells Laura what happened, and and then he goes outside and tries to fight Sid. However, it's no match, especially when Richard is drunk. I mean, come on. Sid and Richard, come on. And Gary's okay, I got this. There's no issue. And then Laura takes him home. And next we see that Abby and Val are at the park with the children. And this is where I think that Val and Abby are starting to become friends. However, it doesn't last very long. And then Val and her talk about where she's going to live. And then Val encourages her to stay in knotslanding because she does have family and she does have so-called friends. And then next we see that Karen, Sid, and the lawyer are going to the spot. And then Karen finds a loophole. She knew that Karen said that, Karen knew the girls in the van. However, they couldn't remember what the license plate was. And then the next thing is that we see that Abby tells Sid and Karen that her kids are at Val's, and that Val just wanted them to stay the night. And then they're caught talking in the kitchen, and Sid can't remember the plate. And then Karen asks what they're doing. Oh, and then Sid and Karen are in bed, and Karen asks what the van looked like, and Karen tells Sid that she saw the van and that she remembers what the license plate had in it, and it's the duck, YUK or YCK or something like that. And she goes, I remember it because that was my thoughts exactly. Then they're at the police station. Oh, Sid and the lawyer are at the police station where they're running the plates. And then we see that Abby and Karen are back at Pam's taking pictures of the van. And then we see that Abby is at the police station trying to get more info about that night. And then we see that the one that Karen is in with the lieutenant giving her more info. Um, and then we see that Sid, Karen, the lawyer, the prosecutor, the lieutenant, and Pam and her mom are and talking about the new evidence, and then the DA tells Pam that because of the new evidence, Pam's testimony is worthless. And Pam goes, I don't think so. It wasn't Rodney. It's not Rodney's van. However, Rodney flips on Pam, and bam, Pam is cooked. And then we learn that the charges are dropped, and then they start to walk out. Karen looks back at Pam and her mother, and then they learn that, it's all over for now, and then it's just like the next couple of steps are, just moving on with their life. And then we see that Abby is moving to the cul-de-sac. Dun dun dun, more trouble ahead. And we see that Richard comes home. Oh, we see that Sid and Karen return home, and they start to learn about where Abby's gonna live. However, Richard comes home, and they see that, and then Sid tries to apologize. However, Sid just runs inside, and then that's when that we learn that Karen is that Abby's gonna live nearby. So that is episode 1 and 2. Co-host in the background, you have anything to add? I just want to say that and again, I think this is very Karen and Sid driven because Don Murray wrote the episode. So therefore, I think that that's where it is. I think that the way that the way it really sets up what Karen is going to have to deal with in the future. However, I don't think Don Murray actually knew that he was going to be leading the show at this point, but I think that was a real good setup to what Karen as what a powerhouse Karen will be in the coming season and what she is going to end up fighting for um, come the future. Well, I really did run these 2 episodes down in 1 episode. And then we see a little bit of Kenny and Ginger really. Um, they weren't in the second episode, but we kind of learn where they stand from the first season and where they left off. We really didn't get to see a lot of Val and Gary, although we did learn that Val and Evan's kids becoming friends. Um, are becoming friends, and that they're going to form a close bond that will carry out throughout the sending, throughout the season. I just have to ask my co-host what she was posting in the comment section because I wasn't sure what that means. Um, and then we see, like I said, Val is building up her relationship with the kids, and then we see where Abby starts to infiltrate herself onto the couples now that she's going to stay in that landing. She hits on every guy except for her brother, which of course, would not be right. But, she hits on Gary, she hits on Richard, and she hits on Kenny. Um, we don't really see a lot of Richard and Laura, but we do see a lot of Richard in this episode. And just because she's representing um, Sid, and I think that really says a lot about what will become of Richard in the later seasons as well. And I really am looking forward to when we see more of Laura. I think Laura's going to become a staple in the seasons to come. I think there again, we're going to learn. I think that Sid did redeem himself a little bit in these episodes, and again, I think that is because maybe Don Murray did recognize from the first season that he came off as like a little bit clueless, and then therefore he was able to write these episodes to maybe redeem himself a little bit in these episodes. So I did agree with Sid in some of these, um, on some of these scenes, but I still think that he was just a little bit clueless. I think that he should have let Karen get a criminal lawyer a little bit sooner. But I guess if he didn't, then we would just have a part one and not part one and two. So I guess that's all I have. I think that Diana's attitude in these two episodes are gonna become more apparent as we move on throughout the season. I think that the boys' issues are gonna come out more in these next few episodes. So therefore, I think that that's gonna come out a little bit more with Diana's attitudes and the kids. And I am looking forward to when I think Michael's major storyline in season two is starting to come up, and we'll see that in the next episode. So Cole, anything to add? Co-host in the background, can you hear me okay? Am I right on? Am I missing something? Do I need to add anything? Take away anything? Just let me know. I'm gonna pull up this next scene. This is gonna be two scenes, I think, because I really like the scene I'm gonna play, and then I realized the scene after. So let me go to that. Anything to add about Abby though? Can you kind of see? Did I really tag her? Like, she was hitting on everyone, and then coming back, and then and she was just trying to um get into that already. You could see it from day one. All right. So here's a scenes from season two, episode two, and this is in accordance with YouTube series policy.
Wait a minute. Your husband, he's as guilty as sin. Just now inside, you looked at Pam and you knew she was lying. I saw it in your face. And I saw you wipe it from your mind. Yeah. Sure, I had my doubts for a second. Old habits are hard to break. But I'm trying to break them, and right now I'm...
So right there, you kind of see how Pam's mother is having second thoughts about this, but she's still wanting to stick by her daughter. And then it just also goes to show you that maybe Pam does have a history of this, and that the mother does know about it, but she's wanting to stick by her daughter because she believes that maybe her daughter is not lying in this situation. So I think that Karen and Pam's mom are both being mama bears. However, this is where Karen, I think, starts to shine, and maybe a little bit of Michelle is coming out in this, but I'm not 100% on that, but I can kind of see it. So this is in accordance with YouTube series policy.
Out of her. But the stand she's taking, she's saying, Mama, we are what we are, but that don't mean we're not people. That's a wonderful thought, and the idea of what Pam's saying, that the difference between force and choice is all that matters. I'm all for that. I'd be on her side in this case if only she weren't lying. My husband did not try to rape her.
Again, I forgot to mute that part. I didn't know what I was saying. So I know that eventually that these videos are not monetized. So I know that probably this one will not get monetized because of that. Because of this one and the last clip that I played, I am well aware of that. But again, this is where Karen gets her, where we see Karen starts to give her speeches and just not hold back. And again, it's the mama bear of it all for me. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube series policy.
Are you sure? Damn right. He's innocent. Well, if he's innocent, why'd he send his lawyer up here with money? We wouldn't even hear him out. That's not true. I don't lie.
There again, this is where Karen learns about what happened with Richard, and she's not happy about it. she doesn't believe it. However, the mom is saying, Karen's mom is saying that she don't lie. Oh, goodness. Oh, well, as in the word of, I don't do true crime, but I do have to say, in the words of Alec Murdoch, oh, the tangle web will weave. In accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
I fight, I punch, I kick, but I don't lie. And I can't be bought. Check it out for yourself. Ask your husband why he sent his lawyer up here with a bribe. Seems to me you're the one who's got this straighter, not us.
Oh, poor Karen in this moment. I just feel so bad for her. And again, okay, so this is part of where the scene where Karen sees the van, she sees the license plate, and then she takes her and Abby take the pictures and the next couple of scenes. So we're gonna jump to where I think that I'm co-hosting the background. You can say this, but I think that this is where the very first scene where we see Karen sitting in the dark, and seeing the fact that where she's contemplating what's going on, she's unsure of what's going on, and we'll see this again in season 5, where she's just kind of like, what is going on? What is I can't process this all. I need to be left alone with my thoughts. But again, here we are. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Karen? Here.
Sid is coming home and looking for Karen. However, she goes on here. She's sitting in the living room in the dark with the curtains closed. And we'll learn what she does after that. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Why are you sitting in the dark?
Came home, closed the drapes, front and back, upstairs and down. Symbolism is so obvious, it's embarrassing. God, how I hate to be obvious.
I think Karen and michelelee both are not obvious. And I don't think that they know anything different, but that's just me. And you'll see it more as we get into the newer seasons, or the coming up seasons where she settles with her hands a lot more. They really play into Michelle's character and her aspects of it. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
You're home early?
What little there is to do at the shopyard is to do.
It's over, Sid. Finished.
What is?
Case, the trial, it's over. We're dead.
What are you talking about?
Richard offered them a bribe.
What?
I went to see the girl and her mother this morning. They said he offered them a bribe. I believe him. It's over, Sid.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Can you get the mail?
And again, this is when Richard comes home with Jason, and Sid runs out and goes to talk to Richard. I don't know what this plays through a little bit, because I think this actually goes a little bit more text to Richard what happened, and so what his journey will be throughout his run on knotslanding.
Richard, you're fired.
Sorry, and this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Can you get the mail? Richard, you're fired. What? What do you offered them a bribe? Now listen to me. The only reason I'm in this mess is because I wouldn't give that girl money in the first place. Yeah. Now you offer them a bribe in my name. Yeah, if you don't pay her now, you're going to jail. I'm not going to go to jail because I'm innocent. Oh, Sid, this is not Camelot. You are not King Arthur. Pay Richard, pay her and get no more advice, no more deals. You're off the case.
This broke Richard and it also broke Karen because Karen does love Richard with all of her heart as a friend, but she does agree with her husband in this moment. And I think in this moment too that, Sid did the right thing in this moment. And the fact that, he is right, he wouldn't give her any money in the first place. So why would Richard go behind his back and do exactly what he didn't want to do? That's just my opinion. So I think that, for this episode, for these two episodes, I think that the writing was great. I think that Don Murray did a really good job. I think it helped to bring, gives it a little bit more depth to his character and not be so clueless. However, he kind of goes back. Just give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'm leaving a comment on the Reddit thread that I'm doing. So just give me 1 second. So, but does that make sense? Co-host in the background, like I just feel like Don Murray just kind of wrote these two episodes to give him a little bit more depth because he maybe in a sense felt a little bit clueless and maybe saw the reels and the episodes in the first season and he just kind of felt like he needs to have a little bit more depth and not be so clueless within the episodes. And I think we'll see this a little bit more too with when we get to Michael's situation. And I think we're coming up to that where he and Michael will have some amazing scenes together. But there again, I think there's parts in that storyline as well where I think that he is so clueless and he tries, and it's almost like back in the day, there's nothing going on, there's nothing wrong, nothing that, we're not gonna, nothing that we can't cure it with just a little bit of love and family time. That's what I think. I don't know. Tell me if I'm off base. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Uh-oh. Sorry, my cat has a bag that I got and he's trying to play with it. So if you hear that in the background, that's a cat trying to, hold on, let me see. You want in? You want to go inside? Here, come on. Here. Come on. I think he's trying to go in the bag, but he, come on. You want to go in? He's like, no, I don't want to go in. I'm like, okay, well, but so co-host in the background, am I good on this? On that, like, am I good to where I think that just maybe Don Murray just wanted to write something to give him a little bit of a depth, and to also, maybe have Karen find her voice and all this so that, she, um, oops, uh, and that'll come up later too, like I said, in the newer episodes when we get to like season 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I haven't really gone, well, no, I take that back. I have gone past 9 a little bit. I've gone into a little bit of season 10, um, but I haven't made it past, I want to say halfway past season 10. So you guys are going to get my real reactions once we hit season 10. Okay, so next. Oh boy, next is going to be another hard episode, but we're going to get through it. We're going to do it because it's kind of going back on the Gary storyline where we ended in season 1. So I think the first part of season 2 is where they're trying to tie up all the stories together and just kind of let us know where everybody is at this point in the storyline. So we'll see a lot more of Val and Gary, and we'll see a lot more of and Ginger and Kenny, and then we'll see a little bit more of Abby as well. So episode 3 is called Remember the Good Times. And then we open with, because we found out in the last episode that Abby is moving into the house next door to Laura. So it's going to go Val, Gary, Karen, and Sid, and then Mac later. Karen, Sid, Mac. And then you have Richard and Laura. And then you have Abby and her kids. And then soon it will be Frank and Pat and their daughter Julie. So you have all this. So I think that one house is going to be empty for a while, but then, they do get neighbors. No. Pat and Frank move into Laura's old house. So you got, I take that back. So you got Val and Gary, Sid, Karen, Mac. Then you got Laura and Richard, Laura and Kathy, Laura, Laura sometimes CJ. Then you got Abby and her kids, Frank and Pat, and then you have Ginger and Kenny. So that's the cul-de-sac. And then later on, we'll see that Kenny and Ginger move out. Then the house where Abby is staying, that's no one's gonna be there. And then when Laura moves out fully, then it's Pat and Frank and their daughter. So that's the makeup of the cul-de-sac from season 2 until season 9, and then we'll go from there. So we open up with how Karen is walking over to Abby's, and she's helping her move in. And then, however, classic Abby, she's in the pool, letting everybody else do the work. And then Val comes over with a box and shows off her new dishes that she just got. And then Abby comes out of the pool while Val offers to help, and Abby goes, I thought you never asked. And then this is where Abby learns about Gary and his drinking issues. And then, according to Val, Gary won't go to AA unless Val goes with him. And then we are at the meeting, and then we see that Val introduces Gary to Judy, who is his spouse, and that her husband is the one who has a drinking problem. And then we see Dr. Kramer shows up, and then we learn that she too is also an alcoholic. And then throughout this, we see that Val is trying to get Gary to help Earl. and they're all pushing on Gary to help Earl to be a sponsor. And then the meeting is over, and Earl is outside drunk, and Julie is kind of like not happy about it. And then we jump to that we see that Ginger was out with a guy, and he tries to come inside, and Ginger says, "No, I'm tired, I'm not feeling well, I just want to go in and go to bed." And then Ginger goes in the house. Kenny calls about a mic and wants to come by and get it tonight, and Ginger says no, that she's wanting to go to bed. Um, oh, and then Val ends up giving Earl and Judy Gary's phone number at home and at work. So then Val asks why Gary was mean and wants to invite them over for dinner. And Gary goes, "What, to show off her new dishes?" And she goes, "So what?" But she also realizes that this might be good for Gary. And then Val and Gary talk about starting a new family, and it goes into that. And then it's the next morning, we see that Abby sees Kenny leaving Ginger's after he picks up the knife, and then she drops the item that she's carrying, which happens to be all of Olivia and Brian's toys. And then Kenny rushes over to help her. And then again, Abby is hitting on everyone except for Sid and the cul-de-sac. Um, and then, oh, and then we see that Abby invites everyone over for a swim on Saturday, but we don't necessarily see that. But we do see that everyone is invited. Um, and then we see that Gary, instead of talking at the dealership, Earl shows up drunk, and then Gary brings him home to their house. And then Val and Karen are helping Abby moving in, cleaning, and all this stuff. And then we see that Val goes home to get rags, and then Karen makes a joke. What, you only clean your items like every 7 years? And then so it's just kind of a joke. So again, you kind of see this friendship, relationship, sisterhood between Gary and between Karen and Abby. However, I don't know if it's real or if it's just because they're family that they're choosing one another. Um, so then Val goes to go get some rags, and then Val learns that Earl is upstairs, and Val asks Gary why he brought him home, and Gary goes, "I had no other choice. I don't know where he went. I didn't know what to do." So then we're at Kenny and Ginger's with the mic. He drops it off, and then Kenny invites Ginger out to dinner. At first, Ginger says no, but then they end up going out to eat. And then we see that Abby's kids are running amok. Oh, and in between this, I forgot to mention, Karen offers Eric to babysit because Val asks, or Abby asks Val to babysit, and Val says, "No, I'm having company." And then Karen goes, "Well, Eric can do it, not a problem. Besides, he'll want the money." Um, so then, so then that's that. And then we see that Abby's kids are running amok, and then Eric shows up to babysit. And I just feel bad for Eric in this moment. It's so funny. And then we see that Judy is at Val's for coffee and dinner, and then Earl wakes up. And every time I see the name Earl, I can't think of Goodbye Earl or My Name is Earl. And come on, it kind of puts it in the brain. I can't get it out of my brain. So then Earl wakes up and he is kind of mean. And then Judy is kind of giving a rundown of how Earl acts when he's drunk, which I can relate. We kind of talked about that in Friday's breakdown. I can kind of relate to that. Um, and then Val was realizing she may have made a mistake as Judy and Earl are fighting, and she's calling Gary on the phone. Next, we see that Ginger and Kenny are out to eat, talking about memories. And then we're back at Gary and Val's. We see that Judy is helping to set the table. And then Gary comes home and Val sends him upstairs to check on Earl. And then he sees that Earl is trying to get through without drinking. And then Earl says, "Do I have to go downstairs and deal with them?" And Gary says, "Only through dinner, and then we'll go to a meeting afterwards." However, he has a bottle of alcohol in his sock. He takes it, he drinks it, and then we're at dinner, at the meetings for dinner, and Earl asks for a glass of wine, and then they're like, "No, of course we don't have alcohol in the house, and we're not going to get anything." And then Judy and Earl start fighting, and then Earl leaves to go to the bathroom, and he drinks more alcohol. Judy tries to apologize, and then Earl comes back drunk, and then he removes Earl, and then they end up going to the meeting. After the meeting, Gary asks Earl to go talk and have coffee about what's going on, and then about when he started to drink. And then Earl does tell him the story about it, how it just started off as like a one-time thing, and then it just became more like when he got in the dance, and then when he started to fail, and then he just couldn't stop drinking. And then Gary tells him that he was sober a year before going to AA, and then he took one drink, and then he lost it. And then we learn that Earl doesn't want to stop drinking because he's afraid that all the good times will be gone. So then he goes into, I want to say, a bar where it's at happy hour from 4 to 6. I think that's what it is. And then Gary follows him in, but he is so tempted that he does not stay. So he walks out and leaves him there. Which I think was smart because who knows what would have happened if Gary had stayed. I think it was smart of him to leave. And then Ginger and Kenny come home, and Kenny stays the night. We learn that the next morning. And Gary is home, and Val sees him in the kitchen. And then we see that like it's really late in the morning, and so Karen goes to Abby's and removes Eric so that he can go home and get some sleep because it is a school night. And then Val tries to comfort Gary, and then they start to kiss, and one thing was leading to another, and then they get a phone call, and it's Judy saying that Earl is trying to dry out at a hotel. Gary goes after Earl, and Val wants to go with him. However, Gary says, "No, I have to do this by myself." So Val is starting to feel left out. Gary finds Earl trying to dry out with Judy, and then Judy, in the meantime, while they're trying to deal with Earl, Judy hits on Gary and tells him that she can't live with Earl anymore, and that Val is so lucky that he is sober. And then next we see that Abby finally returns home, and Karen is not happy. And I wrote down, first Abby and Karen fight, and then I said, almost. And then I said, dang, what a letdown. And then, so I was like really looking forward to that first Karen Abby fight. Goodness gracious. And then Gary calls Val, who's at the hospital with Earl. They put Earl in a detox program. And then we're at the, the characters just the next morning. And Karen is not happy with Abby. And then we see that Ginger and Kenny are at home. It's the next morning, and he wants to move back in, Ginger asks about Sylvie. She wants, however, Ginger wants to resolve things, but nothing has changed. And then Ginger doesn't know about what last night meant. And then Val learns that Gary needs to learn how to do things on his own with his AA and with his drinking and taking it day by day. And Val wants to do what's best for Gary, but Dr. Kramer tells Val she needs to do what's best for Val. And so Dr. Kramer recommends Al Anon, which is something that I have been to and I highly recommend it. I don't go to it now, but I did go to it back in the day. Um, and then, but she needs to take care of herself. And then next we see that Val and Gary leave Earl at the hospital, and then they go home. And then another part of the scene at the circus before the end of the show is that we see that Michael is starting to become a little bit more hyper, a little bit more, um, how do you say, out of control. And we don't know why. And again, this is the 80s. We don't know why kids do become more active, why they become more, have more issues. We do see that he spills milk, and then the way that he tries to clean it up is really not the best way. And Karen tries to tell him, hey, that's not the best way. So again, we're gonna learn more about that as the season goes on, and I think that this will help bring more of a more of a thing to Sid and Michael. So that was a real loose breakdown. So let me just go over the couple. So we're sitting here and we really didn't see a lot of them together other than at the breakfast table the next morning after Karen returned home from staying with Abby's kids. And they were talking about the fact how, Abby was very irresponsible and saying so then we learned that Karen is not happy about that. And then we didn't see Richard and Laura at all in this episode, so I can't really comment on them. We did see Ginger and Kenny. I really hope that they do work it out. I do know how season 2 goes, so I won't ruin it for everyone if you haven't seen it. And then with Gary and Val, I just love the fact that Val wanted to help Gary to become a sponsor, but then she needed to learn how to win the back off, which I think is a huge thing because alcoholism doesn't affect just the person who has the disease, but everyone within the family. And so therefore I think that really showed the whole thing. And again, with Ted Shackelfield dealing with this in real life, I think that he really can play off on this storyline. And again, I want to know if he had told the writers and directors when he went in for the audition that he did have this issue, however, or not. That would be real interesting to learn. I haven't found anything in my research that tells me that he did tell him that. So I think that would have been cool if he didn't tell him. However, he did tell him after he got the part to make sure that he didn't have any alcohol near him at all. Otherwise, it would be just like Gary. So again, I think that this episode really did well with the fact of um, Ted playing the character, and I think that this is where the show really shows real life imitating art or art imitating real life with the Gary and Val. I think that with Abby we're still learning. However, we do learn later on about her a little bit more. But we are still learning about Abby and how she takes advantage of everyone. So we just kind of see that coming up, especially between her and Karen. Because right now, Sid is still with us, so therefore, I think that she knows that Karen will not react because of Sid. However, I think that in later seasons we'll see how that pans out. So, co-host in the background, do you have anything to add with that? And again, I think I'm going to play two scenes from this because I think it's going to show what we're going to get into with the upcoming episodes. So we will play two scenes. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and then go into that. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair Use policy. Karen is walking up to the door to greet Abby, like, what in the world is going on? So this is where I think that Karen and Abby are going to have their first go round with what's going on. So, and again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair policy.
Morning. Karen, what are you doing here? Well, I had to send Eric home. Got to be late.
Abby, I have to tell you, I do not think this was a good idea.
What?
Staying out all night.
Well, I actually tried to get home sooner, but well, it's a long story.
Was your kid's first night in a new home? They could have gotten scared.
Did they?
No, but
Well,
When I first watched this scene, and when I first watched Abby, I wasn't sure what to make of her mothering skills because it was almost like I know that she loved her kids, but I get the feeling like she wasn't real hands on. Even though that she did love them, she wasn't exactly sure how to navigate this new world of being a single parent. So I don't know how this played out, how this is going to play out when I first watched this episode. And looking back, I'm wondering if others are going to be thinking the same thing. So that's just my opinion when I was first watching Evan. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair Use policy.
I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, Karen, and thanks.
There again, I think that the way that Abby was saying this, it was almost like sarcastic. However, Karen just smiled. I was really looking forward to a knockdown, drag out. No, I was really looking forward to a Karen Abby fight. But alas, it was a letdown. But we'll get there. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair Use policy. Okay, now I'm gonna jump to the next scene when we're at the fair gates. So again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair Use policy.
All right, I'll be ready.
What late night?
I have to admit, it wasn't very thoughtful asking Eric to babysit and then coming home at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, Aaron's a big guy now. What late night will kill him?
It's the point.
Well, Mom, you're making such a big deal out of it. Nothing happened.
Oh, honey.
Okay, so I wanted to play this scene because it shows that Karen is still kind of reeling about Abby coming home late, and then this is where Michael gets his cereal and then he starts to pour. However, he pours it on the table. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube Fair Use policy.
Clean that up.
Mom, he's getting it all over everything.
I said clean that up, Michael.
Don't do that.
Okay, I'll take care of it. Hey, Little guy, you just watch your step, little monkey.
This is where I think that shit is a little bit clueless again. She doesn't see that there's anything wrong. However, Karen and Diana are looking at Michael like, what in the world is going on with this child? What can I do to help? However, a fun fact that I learned is that he was, like, the actor that played Michael was really 13 or 14 when he got the role. So here he is, small, playing either 9 or 10, but he's really 13 and 14 in real life. I get you, Michael. I get you. I understand. I get you. And again, this is in accordance with the change fair use policy.
I don't know where he gets his energy.
That's the price you pay for having healthy kids.
Well, where was I?
You were complaining about Aunt Abby. Abby.
I was not complaining. I was just making a point.
Abby's always been a little bit wild, but she's never done any harm.
If I could only show that look that Karen had when she said that line, I was like, Abby's always been a little bit wild, but she's never done any harm. Oh boy. That look in Karen, that was wild. She was like, are you sure about that shit? I think I know something that you don't know. But anyway, so we'll learn a little bit more about that. So that's where we're at with season 2, episodes 1 through 3. Co-host in the background, you got anything to add, anything to say, anything about Abby or Karen and all that jazz? I kind of did this fast because you understand me, okay? I'm trying to not feel good again. So while I wait for her, again, there is the links in the description box below are the We're Not Done Yet podcast, the CB Circle channel, and then I'm going to link the new episode with Christian Chenoweth of the We're Not Done Yet podcast. And then also, don't forget to do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share it out, leave a comment box down below. Anything that I missed, any thoughts? Am I on point? I just want to make sure I'm on point. I think there is a lot to unpack, but I think we just gotta get through these first 3 seasons, and then once we get through these first 3 seasons, there will be a lot more to unpack once we get there, and we just gotta get through these first 3 seasons. And with me taking the day off, these couple of days off, it kind of put me back a couple of days, but that's okay. I just had to get rid of this migraine, which I'm starting to feel lightheaded again, so I'm gonna end it here shortly. But I just think once we get through these 3 seasons, the episode, and I think again it's the Karen and Mac. Once we get, oh yes, so I did move the Broken Dreams, Big Dreams, Broken Hearts by the Daddy West story. I did move that to next week because I'm not feeling good this week, so I didn't want to put a lot on my plate. So that is moved to next week. So I hope you guys will join me for that. I think that's on the 15th because Monday is the 13th. So we'll do that on the 15th and not today. So that will happen next Wednesday. So I think, so co-host in the background, do you agree that starting in season 4, it's going to be a little bit more easier to break down. I just feel like right now it's just kind of like we're getting our feelings with it. And I think once we hit season 3, there might be a little bit more to break down, but I think that with season 4, it'll just ramp up because you'll have the Mac and Karen of it all. You'll have Abby being Abby more so. You'll have um, Greg Sumner coming in. You'll have the Wolfbridge group. You'll have the Dobsons. Um, you'll have Mac's ex-girlfriend come, daughter come, not ex-daughter, but his daughter come. So you'll have all of that encompassing all of that. So I think that once we hit season 4, that'll be the big bulk of it. But I think right now we just gotta get through seasons 1 through 3. So, and again, so this clueless, we all know this. Um, and then, so hopefully tomorrow I'll do episodes 3 and 4, and then sorry, 4 and 5, and then we'll just move it along like that. As long as I feel better. I just put this off because I knew I was going to do 3 episodes at once. So I just wanted to kind of clear my schedule just in case I had a lot more to do, and I just wanted to feel up to par because I wanted to give these episodes this and that deserved. So, without further ado, again, do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'm going to end it here. Bye. Have a good night.